and welcome to the Point to Rise show. This is your host, Susanne, former international ballerina that found her passion in mindset, business, and technology, and is today the founder of Rise Media. It is my purpose to use all the experiences of my past to create a better, financially sustainable future for the performing arts industry. And that starts with every single one of us. I believe that being you is your superpower. And I am here to guide you, empower you, inspire you, and give you all the resources you need to rise above what you think you're capable of. Every week, I'll bring you 3 shows featuring guests, collaboration, and mini episodes to ensure that you have the support in your journey as a performer. I want you to know that you are not alone. Stop chasing and start creating. Your success starts now, here with you. So let's go. And we're back. Thank you so much for tuning in. Another episode of the Point to Rise podcast. I am so grateful you have tuned in. Now, before I start talking about today's topic, which is why is it so hard to implement change and why are we resisting it in so many areas in our life, I want to talk to you about 2 things before. So one, just in case you didn't know and we haven't done our marketing properly yet, on June 6th at 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we are, which is Rachel and I, are holding another workshop. And this month's topic is the F word. We are going to teach you and show you how to walk alongside fear, how to make it your friend, how to lean into it versus resist it, and give you some tangible tools, some one-on-one coaching, some group coaching, a meditation, and helping you to navigate that crippling fear that holds us back in so many areas of our life. So come and join us. The link will be in the show notes, or you just go to either one of our Instagram pages. The link tree will have a sign up page there. So that's there for you. And the second thing, I just thought that I could serve my community, our community better by giving you an in to learning more about what coaching actually is. And I'm offering 10 spots and we have 3 more available to get an hour of free coaching. So what does that mean, coaching? It actually is a conversation where we talk about what's on your heart, where you'd think you want to be, and where you feel like you're stuck, or maybe you want to found a business and you don't know where to start or who to connect with. Maybe you want to build a brand and you don't know how to do that and how to start it, and maybe there's some fear involved. It is always great. The first step is to actually connect with other people that have been there, done that. And believe me, I've been there, I am there, and I'm doing it, to see what was their experience, how did they go and walk through and over the obstacles, and perhaps also what kind of communities can you plug in to gain more, I would say, visibility, or people that could expand your network. So if that's for you, just DM me privately on my Instagram personal or the Point to Rise page here, the one for the podcast, and say you would like to know more, and then I'll get in contact with you. All right, now let's talk about change. All right, this is for all of my performing artists. You know how we, particularly in the last 2 years, have talked about that change is necessary, yet we're resisting it. The voices are getting louder and louder and louder about business strategies in the performing arts, how we're teaching ballet particularly, that it needs to change. And there are also forums out there that say, the industry has to change so we artists can change. But it's everybody needs to understand that we in some way or another have become a product of the industry. And even if the industry would change, we wouldn't quite fit in it yet, because we haven't changed. Our mindset hasn't changed. Our beliefs haven't changed. Our expectations haven't changed. Our worthiness about ourselves hasn't changed. So, and if that is not changing first, you will actually not even recognize an industry that could change. So, my call to action is here, that understanding and making it your first step, why change is actually so difficult to implement. That is your first step in, and your participation basically with in the change within this industry that we all love so dearly. We all know that, you're not a performing artist because you're making tons of money. No, you're a performing artist because you want to express yourself in a certain way. And look how that all belief came in, right? The change of, oh, artists don't make money. Yeah, let's change that too. I'll talk about that soon. So let's understand first that there are actually 5 stages of change. Okay. So the first, and there's actually a book, or a how can I say this? The 5 stages of change are based on the trans theoretical model of behavior change that was created by James Prochaska, who is a renowned psychologist. And I don't think I said that name right. Prochaska. James Prochaska. Change does not normally occur in a linear way at all. Like, change goes up and down, right? And I think that's where we as human beings get stuck a little bit. When we want change, we want it because it is so uncomfortable. We want it right now, and we're not willing to sign up for the journey because we don't understand it whereabouts yet. So this is where I come in. This is where you can listen to this podcast episode over and over again. So again, we have established that change is not linear. Success isn't linear either, right? So jumping back and forth between these stages is often part of the process. So it starts with pre-contemplation. That is the first stage of change in which we become actually aware of something that is needed or desired to change. So there is not yet any kind of conscious intention for that change in that stage. And we're being able to recognize the problem or a potential for improvement and what it actually could bring. And a little spark of motivation is already insert. Okay. So the second stage is contemplation. So we are acknowledging at that stage that the need or want for change is here. Okay. This is where we want to change, but we're not ready yet. We just have the, oh, I wish. That is the contemplation stage, but we're not yet ready to follow through or take any actions or set any kind of, I would say, behaviors in place that could initiate that change. Okay. The stage can be overcome by doing a cost and benefit analysis, which means basically, the pros and cons. Like, if I stay this way, this is what it's going to cost me. If I change, these are the benefits, and this is what is going to cost me as well. Okay. So the third stage of change is the preparations. At this stage, we actually make the decision to follow through with the change. This is where we start our first step towards making this change. So for example, that could mean signing up for a gym membership if you wanted to lose some weight or get into better shape or stronger, or researching or learning about something that the desired change could come closer to us, like reading a blog, buying a book, signing up for a masterclass, or signing up for a course or a workshop, for example, right? So we're seeking out help. Who can help us to generate that change that we're looking for? Okay. Number 4, or the 4th stage, is action stage, meaning we're actually taking actions. Okay. At this stage, plans are being put into actions, and persistent actions is in motion. A lot of effort and commitment is actually required at this stage because it takes a lot of pre planning and working against your own knowledge to or breaking through your old patterns. Okay. This is why it really requires commitment, and that is why it is harder and feels hard. Okay. So some form of behavioral change has occurred. Adjustments have been made in different areas of life to accommodate this kind of change. And this stage normally takes about 6 months. And this is where people actually fall off because it's just way too long, right? Like when you want to change something, you want it instantly. You don't want to do the work. But this is where I said in the beginning, right? Change isn't linear. It is a journey. So and then number five, and let me just go back here really quickly. It is when the action stage comes in, it is also finding many levels of compassion for yourself because mistakes and slip ups will happen. And that is the stage where we have to accept and forgive ourselves and not to be so hard on ourselves and just say, okay, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to start over. I'm going to start over and I'm going to keep going. Okay. Number five, the fifth stage is the maintenance. This stage is about sustaining the change and making it last long term and making it actually your new default behavior, right? At this stage, significant change has taken place over 6 months. Sometimes it could be a little less depending on your development. Like if it's actually, when we're not saying it's not linear, if it actually goes up a little bit, or if you're falling off the change becomes shorter and shorter, like the periods in between become longer and longer. So there we go. We realize at this stage that change is actually possible, which gives us motivation too, right? It gives us confidence as well. And that will enable us to actually keep going. Change is now more likely to be permanent, and it is still possible to relapse or bounce back to old behaviors if this stage is ignored, although it's less likely at this stage that that we're falling back or off the wagon, however we want to call it, than during that action stage. Okay. So look at smokers, for example, right? Like they can be not smoking for a very long time. And then after 10 years, you hear sometimes they go back to old behaviors because they think they're looking for something similar, familiar, for example. Okay, so let's talk quickly about, so these are the stages. And now let's get into 5 reasons why it is actually difficult to change. Number 1 is the way we actually look at the change itself. So we tend to look at change as one big thing, when in reality, it's rarely ever like that when it comes to changes in ourselves or our behavior. Behavioral changes is often gradual and slow, and it takes a lot of awareness, because if we're not aware of a behavior or not aware of a behavior is actually creating a certain outcome, then we can't change because we're not aware of the behavior. Behavior change is a big thing, but it rarely ever happens all of a sudden, right? We relapse. And when we look at change as one big thing, it appears more daunting, and therefore we're more likely to avoid it, right? Let's say you want to, this is particularly for this community, such as maybe not the best example, but here it is. You want to lose weight, right? Like society, there are so many people that want to lose weight. And where they're mistaken and where they fall off is they're not looking at actually the behavior that led them in the first place to come to the wanting of or the need to lose weight, right? It's an accumulation of behavior that actually led them to. So when you are afraid of turning on point, it's not something that happened overnight. There were behaviors, there are subconscious structures within you that actually created that fear of, or the behavior of, falling off point and being afraid and not trying it. So in order to change the outcome, the last point of the change, you need to go back and dissect it, and then it actually becomes more manageable. I'm sure you're noticing that when we change the way we look at things, the thing we look at changes. It is so true. And then it doesn't become overwhelming anymore. So, a second one is that change requires a lot of self control and discipline, and that is exhausting. So, this is another reason why change is hard. So, why is it actually exhausting? Why does it take discipline? Simple, because we are so familiar. We feel good in the familiar. We feel great in doing what we always have been doing, because that seems like we have the least energy output. Okay. And when we're trying to change something, we have to create new pathways in our brain in order to create that change. And the creation of something always requires energy and consistent awareness and discipline. So that's exhausting. And that can be hard. And that is why change is hard, because you have to be really, 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 really aware of the reason why it's hard. How can you counteract the hardness in order to help yourself to work through that journey of change and come out on the other side successful? I would say successful in a way that you actually have changed a behavioral pattern over a certain amount of time. Okay. With successful, I mean, it's not perfect, it's not linear, there are up and downs. Okay. Well, and number three would be that we don't see results right away, right? That is why change is hard, because it is a journey. And let's be honest, in the performing arts world, the journey is not really what we're talking about. We're talking about the results. So, performing artists are actually wired to produce results, to be great at the show, to do all the things perfectly at the end. And when we don't see results right away, if we don't get better right away, we're being scolded. So change is hard because we think if we're not delivering right away, it's not worth our time or we're not capable. So be aware if there's something that you want to change in your life, that this pattern, this expectation that you have of yourself will be in your way. Not seeing a result right away is a matter of perception and perspective. Okay. It's because you're not looking hard enough yet and what you actually have changed. Number four is we don't take responsibility for our own life, for our own actions. So this happens when we partake in the blame game, the victimhood. You heard me say this before. Blaming parents for our upbringing, blaming things that happened to us, blaming the director for not getting the role. I don't know, blaming the floor for being too slippery, whatever you can think of, blaming our circumstances. We see our behavior as a result of outside influences of our outside world, instead of taking control and taking it into our own hands, right? While it is true that we are affected by these things that are coming towards us, the real truth lies here is that how we actually reacting. And we have two choices. We can either, you know, be a victim to these circumstances and how other people think of us, or we are taking responsibility for our own action, and then whatever comes towards us is really still in our hand, and we still are driving that bus. So we don't want to take responsibility. That's why change is hard as well. And I would say number five, and there's so many other reasons why change is hard, but we actually spend too much time planning. We're not just going for it, and we're not in for the journey because we want it to be perfect. We want it to be happening now. Spending too much time in the preparation stage is often called the analysis paralysis, right? It's also a writer problem in the yeah, in the elephant or the writer metaphor, right? Writers and honestly many artists are really scared of if it's not perfect, I cannot do it, I cannot put it out. And that's exactly why we're struggling so much with change, because we are not willing to make any kind of mistakes. So we can't make decisions for where we want to actually start and where we actually want to go. And then spend too much time creating the perfect plan and then not not implementing it at all. So don't spend so much time on it. Just go for it and learn while you're doing it. All right, guys. Change is good. Change helps us evolve. Change is a journey, and change is important, particularly in the performing arts world. I am sending you so much love. Thank you so much. If this was in any way helpful for you, please share it with somebody else. Tag your favorite friend so that they can listen to this podcast. I would love to grow this community far beyond the boundaries of North America and Europe, where we're also in right now, and really give everybody access to this podcast. So, and that starts with you sharing it and sharing it more with everybody that you know. I'm sending you so much love. Till next time. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. If this message resonates with you, please pass it on to someone who needs to hear this right now. And if you like what you've heard, your feedback will go a very long way. If you just take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star review, that would mean the world to me. Till next time. Point at yourself to rise to all that you are capable of.